Jessica Tarlov briefly escaped the craziness of the Fox propaganda network to appear on the slightly less crazy Real Time with Bill Maher, and there she made the case that the new Republican speaker, as awful as he may actually present an opportunity for Democrats in the 2024 election. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, again, gaveling in the latest meeting of the Jessica Tarlov fan club, but this one's a bit different because she's not on the 5, or 4v1 as we like to call it. She has left the craziness of the Fox propaganda network to appear on Real Time with Bill Maher, who used to be pretty good, is less good now, in my opinion. He is more, prone to enlightened centrism and false equivalences and notions of like cancel culture, like fixating on what people say on Twitter, the cringe, ridiculous things certain people say on Twitter. And he kind of blurs the lines there. He's a bit too flirtatious, I think, with certain right-wing figures like Nancy Mace, is somebody I talk about, the Republican congresswoman from South Carolina. A couple of months ago, Bill Maher said, "Oh, you're one of the reasonable ones," when in fact she's not. But I digress. This is not about my issues with Bill Maher. This is about Jessica Tarlov's brilliance, and she makes a compelling case. I don't know if I agree with it or not. I certainly think it's risky, but I want to play this clip, and we're going to unpack it together, and then you let me know in the comments section afterwards what you think.
Okay, so I want to start off with this Mike Johnson. I know everyone is saying, Mike Johnson, my insurance agent? No, the other Mike Johnson. He's the Speaker of the House now. So I've been using this very slow-moving coup about Trump since before he got elected the first time. And a lot of people were laughing. I see a lot of people use it now. And every time we don't completely lose our way of government, somebody says, "Oh, well, where's your slow-moving coup now?" It's slow. That's my answer. It's slow. But what happened this week, I remember I did a very dark editorial like 2022, like the last one of the year after that election.
I will say, just to interrupt, as much as I'm critical of Bill Maher, I do think when it comes to Trump, he has pretty much always been on the money. He was one of the few who said early on, long before the 2020 election, that he didn't think that Trump would leave quietly or with grace, or that he would observe the peaceful transfer of power. And he was absolutely correct. So I do want to give him credit there.
Saying, because we all thought the Republicans were going to win, and I said, what's going to happen is that the people who were not in place in 2020, that Trump tried to get his bidding to overturn elections, the John Ratzenbergers of the world, who said, "No, I can't find you votes." They're all going to get replaced. And it didn't happen then. But that's kind of happening now with Mike Johnson, the ultimate election denier, and now all the Republicans. It took them 22 days to get this guy. But now they finally got the guy who's Trump's guy. It takes time to get your people to infiltrate them into these positions. But I'm sorry, I think that thesis still holds. And I think, is this the moment? Let me ask it the question. The Republican Party is just the MAGA party now, right?
I think so. I felt that way for a while, and there were a few kind of glimmers. And I think Kevin McCarthy was like this fancy, shiny object that a lot of people thought.
I've never heard him described that way. But.
Well, he's handsome, he's charming, he's the #1 Republican fundraiser out there, right? Even in the last quarter, he raised $14 million. He's the Nancy Pelosi of the other side in terms of raising money.
Wow. I don't. This is a side of him I never thought of.
Well, that's what I'm here to deliver.
I see.
She's so great. She really is. It is true. Obviously it's subjective whether or not you personally find Kevin McCarthy attractive, but it is true that reportedly he's quite a charmer. He gets along well for the most part with the press. They tend to like him. They think he has a sense of humor. And it's an unquestionable fact that he is their best fundraiser. That is absolutely true. Now, the other comparison to Nancy Pelosi in terms of the speakership, which this isn't the point Jessica Tarlov made, but it is true that also as a speaker, he is absolutely terrible. He lacked all of Nancy Pelosi's administrative and whipping skills. Okay, but anyway, I digress.
No, having spent a lot of time in the conservative ecosystem, these are things that I pay attention to.
Right.
Why is this one more useful than this one, for instance? And Kevin McCarthy comes off as someone normal. He is not normal, right? He's someone who had a day where he said, Donald Trump was responsible for January 6th, and the next day he was at Mar-a-Lago throwing back martinis and hanging out with the crew. So, but this guy also has a sheen to him, right? He doesn't present like what you would think. Last week we thought it was going to be Jim Jordan, right? Has no proper clothes, sits like this, whatever. And then we get this guy who's a lawyer, who has a long career of going after these kind of social issues. You already mentioned it in the monologue about the sodomy laws, criminalizing homosexuality. He was, in the election integrity front, he wasn't just someone who signed on. He was an architect of the plan to get our votes thrown out in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan. Yeah. He is so much more frightening in that sense. But I do think, and obviously want to hear what you guys think about this as well, I think it is a good thing for Democrats that he was made speaker, because everything is laid bare now. If you listen to his interviews, you know exactly who this party is, and Democrats can run against that. It's harder to run against Kevin McCarthy, who might feel more normal to you.
But we keep...
So listen, maybe there's an upside to it. She's making the case that Mike Johnson is so deranged that it will actually lend itself well to Democrats winning back the House in 2024. And I could see it in theory. I'm not in the prophecy business. I don't make predictions. Again, I say that I predicted that Donald Trump would not win, that there was absolutely no way that the American people could possibly elect somebody as stupid, as openly, shamelessly stupid, corrupt, and venal as Donald Trump. And then it happened, and I'll never forget waking up the next day after Election Day 2016 in just utter shock. And so I'm out of the prophecy business, so I'm not going to predict whether or not that this is a good thing or a bad thing. But I do think she makes a compelling case that it could be, right? The Democrats have the ability to look at Mike Johnson's record, which we talked about briefly in a previous video on him. We're definitely going to be talking about it further still as we go on. But this guy who has far-right conservative, like evangelically conservative social views, a guy who, again, attempted to steal the 2020 election with Donald Trump from President Biden. On the other hand, he's relatively anonymous. He's relatively obscure. And when he does show up, Mike Johnson does appear to be, kind of this like nice, dorky dad style affable approach, as opposed to somebody like Jim Jordan, who just comes off deranged. So I don't know. I could see it either way. Let me know what you think in the comments, because obviously my gut says I want to defer to Jessica Tarlov here. She's our queen for a reason. But I'm also a cynic by nature too. And it could very well be that Mike Johnson's relative obscurity, his relative polish, his just nice guy demeanor. He did an interview with Sean Hannity that we're going to break down in another video. He says these terrible things. He has this terrible record and rhetoric, but he's really good at just coming off like a kind of a chill dude in a conversation. So anyway, you've heard the argument. You let me know what you think in the comments section, because I think it's up in the air.